Hello, happy Monday, everyone. Okay, let's get started. So announcement. So Myra's out now for 3 weeks. So hopefully you didn't need her for anything. Give me a shout if anything comes out that you did think, I should have asked her that. We've got Friends and Family Day on Friday. And Jarv, you're out Friday, Monday. And I guess you're not the only one, right? Robert, are you also out Monday?
Yeah, that's the plan.
Cool, and good timing because Skarbek, are you also out Monday next week? I assume so. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Cool. Great. What I'll do in that case, I'll move next week's delivery weekly meeting to Tuesday or whenever I can find a suitable slot, Tuesday or Wednesday next week, so that we've actually got a few people about. So. Awesome. So on to discussion points. So Q4 OKRs are in progress. So firstly, thanks Skarbek for having the first contribution. This is kind of just a rough, like super rough doc just shared in delivery. So feel free to just jot any ideas down in there for things that you would like us to be working on in Q4. That can be at the kind of like specific task level, or it can be at the much bigger, like we should be, completely changing this thing, like we should fix staging, or something as broad as that. And the idea of these things is we're going to try and like bubble these up. So the rough idea, I've just shared a couple of links. So what happens is we have these engineering OKRs get sort of created from the top down. So you can see there the issue of the one that Eric's put together already. And then, so that kind of sets direction across all of engineering. And then what happens is we have something sort of similar from infrastructure, but it's a little bit less like top down in a sense, like it's more of a shape that we can change. So that's the link below. So it's definitely like 0.01 at best, like everything in here could change. But at the moment, what we're roughly thinking is that as a department, our objectives will form in sort of these areas. But it's open for proposals. So what we'll do then is we'll try and map specific things that we want to do as a team, map those into what we want to do as a department, and then meet engineering goals as well. There's some fairly, like whether they're sort of full OKRs or not is still to be determined, but obviously we will still be working on Kubernetes migration. We'll be continuing on with all of the next generation stuff on auto deploys and getting rollbacks and things like that. So there's a few things that are in progress that we won't be stopping, but we may alter the focus a little bit on how we actually frame them as an OKR. If you have got suggestions, it'd be really helpful if you could chuck them in that doc before the end of your day today, just so we can begin wrapping those up and getting them into the issue. What we'll probably end up doing is having a team issue or something like a little bit more visible, where I'll maybe summarize some stuff and we can discuss it. But this is really for the super, like if you want to scratch pad it out, and then we can make it look a bit nicer for public. So timeline wise as well, like we've got 3-ish weeks until Q4 starts. So I'll expect that this week will be lots of kind of idea generation, and then next week we'll probably spend more time actually turning these into OKRs that we can share. Cool. Any questions around OKRs? Cool. Oh, I suppose one other thing I should just mention is, so the Q3 ones will obviously be evaluating as well in the next few weeks. So if you want to see those, this week on Thursday, it's the infrastructure department group conversation. So there'll be a sort of summary of all department ones in there as well. But awesome. So the next thing, delivery workflow. So thanks so much for all the input so far on the issue around that. What I've been trying to do is sort of put together a sort of rough, it's a bit of a rough working prototype, so we can actually start seeing how things work. So I've created 2 boards. The first one is the sort of the build board, and the goal of this board is to make it easier to pick a new task. So one of the big sort of challenges I see in the way we currently work is that we have a lot of things going on in parallel. And this maybe makes a lot of sense in terms of tasks at certain times, like something will get delayed, or, like you need to pick up something like more urgent, or like less, like you're tired and you just want something a little bit less high intensity. And that's okay. But what at the moment we tend to have is like 6 at least big projects underway. So the goal is really to help when you want to pick up a new task, actually pick up something that drives us towards more focused goals. So right now, I think we kind of have 2 sort of overarching team goals. One is to close off some of our epics that we have in progress. So we're doing quite a good job with that. So well done, Robert, and also Myra, for getting the security releases epic closed off. We're pretty close with a few others as well. So a lot of our tasks will contribute towards actually moving those epics forwards. And then the other bit is around our OKRs. So we ideally want to be picking up tasks that actually help contribute towards those goals as well. But there will be other things, right? So sometimes there are corrective actions, or sometimes we have like bugs that we want to just fix, or other things like that. So what I'm kind of thinking with this board is this would be your place where ideally, if you need to pick up a new task, you will come here. There are a few exceptions. If you, for example, are asked to do something by another team, you may decide that actually I just want to get that thing done. It's a quick task or whatever. I need to just unblock them. Or if you are a DRI, you might have a better view of actually within my epic, I just need to get this next task done, and that's okay. So this is really designed for you're not on a epic and there's an immediate next task. It's a, hey, I need to pick up something. What should I go for? And one of the reasons I'm trying to contain this into a board is just literally because of the number of things we have in our delivery team backlog. There's like hundreds and hundreds of issues. And some of them have bigger impact than others. Some of them are more valuable. Others, actually, the ones that are probably more tricky are the ones where you actually need to have a whole load of context and know, okay, when we've done this other thing in 6 weeks' time, this thing will become really easy. So it's trying to remove all of that sort of behind the scenes context you'd need to have. So it's just, hopefully you can just drop in here, grab something that's high priority and know that you're actually working towards goals. So a few things on this board. I think the thing that struck me immediately is, it's not a complete board, I should say. So the thing that struck me immediately is, despite not being a complete board, we have a lot of things in progress. So that's probably the first thing. I'm not going to set limits on this board, but use the visual of the board to try and actually also kind of help realize, like, oh, actually, how can we reduce the stuff in flight a little bit? So the first thing I would like from all of you actually is just to make sure that if you're working on something this week, could you make sure it's assigned to you? And what I'll do is I'll just make sure it gets onto this board so that we actually have an accurate view in our build board at least. Then the other board is the planning board. So this one's a little bit less clearly laid out because I think this stuff's a lot hazier. So this one in a way solves a slightly different problem, right? So this one solves the problem of how can you best use your energy, I think is probably the way to think about this one. So what tends to happen at the moment is we open up an issue, and actually we open up loads of issues every day, which I think is a really good thing. We should keep doing that. We don't necessarily want to have to expect you all to be like, here's 20 new issues today. I expect you all to have commented on all of them before the end of the day, and tomorrow we'll do it all again, right? Because it's tiring. So the idea behind this kind of planning board is that, again, we can collaborate on things that are going to have the biggest impact, but also you can see, okay, this one is in progress or not in progress. So what I've tried to roughly do on this board is things that have, like, it's very much around like a proposal, right? So something that needs a big bit of discussion was on here. So there's some things that don't, right? Like corrective action, we should update the documentation on this thing. Fine, we can just stick that on the ready, on the build board. I think we can just pick that up and get going. These are more for, let's discuss branching strategies, or something which people are going to have a lot of opinion on. And something that's in proposal is literally like, someone's come up with a proposal for how we could tackle this problem. So that one might be useful for if you want to keep abreast of new ideas and stuff that are going on, you could probably just have a read through like these 5 issues. The things that are in triage, I think I was thinking about them more as we need to have some proposal. They're probably things we don't necessarily have a great answer right now of, if we were to pick this up, how would we actually solve that problem? But it's by no means a complete board. So if there is stuff that you, again, are aware of and you want to put on this board, go ahead or ping them over to me. And if you want to, a rough idea would be to get all of the things on this board over into that ready column. And then what that means is we can pick those up, right? Like when it makes sense, we can prioritize these. We know how we'd solve this problem and we can prioritize against our other things. So there's a few things I should add around these boards. So one is they're by no means complete boards right now. So I say, if you could assign things that are in progress for you right now, I'll try and get them onto particularly the build board. What we don't have is a view of our focus. So that's what the next meeting that we'll use next week. Once we've got a view of everything that's in the build, we can have a quick chat through, and based on our epics and our issues that we've come up across, we can actually just check, do we actually have the right next tasks on that actual board? And then we'll automate as much of this as possible, because right now it's definitely tricky, shall we say, to get the right labels. Cool, so lots of comments, which is great. So Jav, I want to go through moving issues.
Yeah, thanks Amy. So yeah, the first thing I asked is, yeah, what's going to move issues from triage to ready? Or it sounds like maybe we're not sure yet.
Yeah, so I think what I was thinking is kind of on the sort of planning board, ready is probably, we kind of roughly agree that we have a good idea. I mean, open for suggestions about how best we do that, but possibly it could just be something like someone else agrees with you, like a couple of people say, yeah, this is a good way. Like, you know, we've resolved any of kind of the big debate or something like that. In terms of how we actually get it from the planning to the build board, that would be something which we could talk about like in Delivery Weekly. I think it'd be okay, we're ready for new stuff. Or actually, no, let me take it back. I think that's actually something that we could work through as a team, right? I don't want this to be a gatekeeper process. I think for me, the big benefit of this stuff is visibility. So I think it's if we think, you know, you all know what you're doing. So I think if you feel like, okay, we should definitely pick up this thing now, you can go ahead and pull it in that way.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Next question is, should we just have a simple ops triage bot rule to just automatically move issues from us, you know, from ready to in progress? Okay, so I can submit some MR for that.
Yeah, we can totally do that. There's probably a few others as well. So what's that? Yeah, but yeah,
Yeah,
let's
so-
do that one first
Mhm.
because that's the really clear one. But I think there are definitely some others that we can get as well.
And also just one general comment I didn't write before we move on. I feel like for me, how I'm working on things is either I'm opening up issues myself and assigning them to myself, or I'm getting Slacked issues, and it's usually someone like saying, "Hey, there's an issue with something. Can you take a look?"
Mhm.
So I'm not really going to the board at all, and I think this is the challenge for me, is that I don't think I've ever felt the need to kind of go to see what's ready. It's usually the things that you know. Things usually bubble up on Slack, like to say like, okay, we need to work on this. And then I go find the issue and then I assign it to myself. Anyway, so that's kind of my workflow right now. I don't know how other people's workflows are, but yeah, I think the board thing, I'll probably check in on it on like a regular basis, but it's not something that I'm constantly looking at, which is the challenge for like moving these labels.
I guess it sounds like we need to figure out a way to deal with not necessarily interrupt-driven work, but work that comes to us that's relatively high priority, but we have not discussed as a team how to deal with when we should pull that work potentially.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And I think very much trust you to use your judgments on that. Like if something comes to you and you feel like it's important enough that you want to pick it up now and you understand what you're going to do with it, by all means, get it into the in progress on the build board. That's totally fine. Like the goal of that board is visibility. If you're not sure about the priority, but you think we should be doing it, then that's a good one. Like I think it's really, to say for me, about the visibility. So if you can actually see, oh, I've already got 5 things in progress, here's another thing. Hopefully it's a little bit of a nudge just to actually think about like, how does this fit in against those 5 things that I'm already doing? But also actually, how do we create, if we don't know exactly how we're going to build this thing out, and I think sometimes it's easier or harder, right? So sometimes it's like a super specific, like it's a sidekick difficulty problem, right? So there's probably not like, I need the whole team to input into this. It's more of I need to work it out, versus should we change the way auto deploys happen, right? Which does affect everyone in the team a bit more. So I think we have different types of problems. So the planning board is really I want input from everybody. We need visibility as a team. And the build board is a little bit of his visibility on what I'm working on right now, or I'm not sure what to pick up next. That's my first place to look for. But I think it will be different if you are involved in an epic, right? Because that's got a slightly different style of how do I pick up work, in that you already have a bit of a backlog defined per epic, and you pick things up in roughly in an order. So I think it will be a bit different when you're working inside an epic. Skarbek, you had a comment about exit criterion from each column.
Yeah, this kind of spawned from the Jarvis issue about, how do we transition between triage and ready, or vice versa? Like, how do we also have 2 boards, so we've got a build and a planning. So how do we go from planning when issue is workflow ready to the build board where it's going to have the same label? I'm wondering, how do we approach that, or should we have some sort of exit criteria that allows us to move an issue to the next phase or column or something?
Yeah, they're great questions. I don't have great answers. I think for now, or certainly for the first period, we should chat about that in the delivery weekly meetings and actually get a feel for what works and what doesn't. And then I think once we have a bit of a process and we're kind of happy that this works and these are the right boards, then we can put it into the handbook and actually write down like, here's how our process works. So yeah, right now I'm hoping that as a discussion we'll get a good feel for it, but I think it's something we'll need to define as we go. Cool. So Robert,
Yeah, so I was
assigning
wondering when we're
labels.
creating, when we're creating new issues, should we be adding these new labels, or is it something you're like grooming as you go through stuff?
Go ahead and put the labels on if you want to. Like it at the moment, I have been grooming that just because I appreciate it's a pain to add even more labels. I think it's something that once we kind of have something in place, we'll try and automate all of this stuff. But yeah, if you're adding new issues and you remember and you're willing, you can try and find the things, then yeah, please go ahead and do that. I don't want these to be like gatekeeper boards at all, right? So like go ahead and move things around and add things in and out as much as you want to as well.
Cool. And then my next question I answered myself because I wasn't thinking this morning. I was wondering why we had this new scope, but that's because the prefix is the scope and we can't have like a P1 and a build. So
I discovered this the hard way, can I just say? So yes, I was like, yeah, this will be great. And then I was like, oh, all the labels have changed. So yeah, just for easy, I went for a slightly different non-scope view. So it's definitely not as tidy, but it means you can have a priority as well, which is kind of important, I think.
Skarbek.
I was just reiterating the same question, but we kind of talked about this a second ago about the need for exit criterion. So, Yorick, you're up.
Cool. And so we'll work that. We'll have to work this one out, I think, and see what does work and doesn't work.
Yeah, my item, like I don't know if it's worth going in depth that much, but it kind of feels like we're sort of suffering from death by labels, for lack of a better term, because we have all the workflow infra labels, and we kind of, as far as I understood at least, had some sort of doubts about that setup. Most notably, the was the done label and the difference between triage, proposal, etc. And it strikes me as a little odd that we now have this separate planning label, whereas as far as my understanding, planning is essentially the same as a proposal. It's kind of like in between proposal, I guess, and ready, but then you might as well pick one of those two. At least that's usually my approach. Because it's kind of at a point where it's like you almost need like a flow chart to sort of describe at what point in time the issue should have what labels and whatever. And I wonder if it adds value in that sense. Like, beyond, say, we're planning this, we're working on it, and it's done. That last one being sort of implicit because the issue is closed. It's, at least to me, and this is my approach, strikes me as a little odd if we have more than that, because then it's kind of like, okay, who really is interested in knowing that, hey, this issue is not just being proposed, we're actually planning it right now. Yeah, but that's kind of my point.
So the way I was thinking about this is kind of what we don't do much of at the moment is actually have a kind of like, should we be doing more triaging? So at the moment we tend to pick up a ticket and then kind of do the triage. So I think that's probably the bit that I was hoping that later on we'll be able to introduce and actually be much clearer about. Triage is an idea, like we've raised a problem, probably, like we've got an issue for it. Proposal is we've got some ideas around it, and ready is like, okay, yeah, we've agreed on something, but certainly open for other people's thoughts on that one.
Yeah, I might be horribly pedantic here, but I personally believe like triage and proposal are the same thing, because in both cases you are proposing essentially something, but there's a certain amount of uncertainty that prevents you from sort of transitioning to the I think it's ready label. I would be inclined to say, hey, let's just not so much merge those, because we don't control the labels, but let's just pick one of the two and use those. Because I think then you basically have, let's say, proposal done, which I think is fairly, I would say, a bit redundant, because done implies it's ready, ideally also assigned, at least in my point of view, and then you have basically in progress, and that's it, I think. But yeah, I'm curious to see what other people think of that.
I like just to have workflow ready and that's it. No triage, no planning. Because I think once you have issues that other people are submitting into our tracker that are not fleshed out, or ones that we're putting in that are not fleshed out, and you may want to signal to other people that this is ready to be picked up, and you could use that label for it. But I think most of the issues are just like they're submitted, and we just take them ourselves, and then we flesh them out like after they're assigned. So I think if I was to reduce it, I would say just have a workflow ready that would be only applied to the issues that you spend some time kind of like fleshing out, and you want to signal to the rest of the team that it's ready to be picked up, but you don't have time to work on it. What does other people think about that?
I completely agree, and that goes the same for the done as well. And I think if the issue is assigned to someone and we've removed the ready label, we're probably working on it. And especially if it's now in the build board, that's just another label that we've got to indicate that we're actively working on something. So I think some of this we could probably just sort with the whatever bot it is that mucks with labels and such. But yeah, I agree with both Yorick and Jarvis.
So do you want to keep triage as well and have that as like the default thing, and triage and then goes to ready? Because I guess triage kind of indicates as well that it doesn't have, it's not necessarily on the right priority, which I think is kind of useful.
It hasn't been touched yet by any of us, so I think that's fine.
Yeah, or I was actually thinking just not having a label indicates that. It's either like if it doesn't have a ready label, then it hasn't been looked at. It hasn't been fleshed out by anyone. Although, yeah, I mean, and so like no labels at all kind of indicates, but I guess it doesn't work for the board, right? Is that the?
Yeah, I was going to say
yeah.
those boards are a little tricky to work with.
So we just default everything to triage that is submitted, and then, yeah. And then it goes to ready if you flesh it out and you want to signal that it's ready to be picked up. Otherwise, you just assign it to yourself, and then we can undo that label when it gets assigned automatically.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Great. Nice. And yeah, I'm happy on the done stuff as well. Like I don't particularly, we have got one in done at the moment, so I'm not going to change it this week. But yeah, I think like as much as we can simplify these things, that makes a load of sense. So nice. Skarbek, work not scope to our delivery group.
Yeah, so sometimes I'll pull stuff from Helm charts, or sometimes I'll end up pulling work. Well, not pulling work, but like contributing to work associated with a different project. And that stuff is not going to show up on these boards just because of the way the board is created. How do we put that visibility in front of our team in that case? And I guess if this is a board that we're going to distribute to the rest of the company, I'm curious as to how we make sure that the rest of the company is aware that we're also doing work that may not necessarily be strictly delivery related.
Do we have a lot of things like that?
I personally don't. Like it's, you know, a few issues per month maybe, but I would imagine like Robert and Yor probably do a lot more than I would imagine.
So, I mean, I'm kind of open to this one. Like I guess there's kind of two ways I can see. One is either we just don't do anything with them and see how much of a pain that is. The other one is, I guess, creating a duplicate issue in delivery, just linking off to wherever the other issue is. I'm kind of fine with either, I suppose. That neither's perfect, right?
I assume that most of the issues I would pull are directly related because of an issue that I am working on currently, so that's probably fine. I don't want to create another issue just to track another issue, though.
Yeah. Well, let's see how we go without that visibility. I suppose it's in a sense, I suppose it's slightly less problematic because it's not like you don't have visibility of something that's directly changing your immediate sort of workflow. It's company-wide, I guess. So we hopefully have other means for sharing that. But yeah, let's see how that one goes. Jarv, priority labels.
Yeah, I was wondering if we can just move to the priority labels that everyone else is using. or not?
What would be the benefit?
I don't know. Like, I don't know. I thought there was a reason why we're using them, but I don't remember. I might have to ask Marin about that.
I think it was originally because the P1234 labels, they were GitLab-org labels, I think. And then later is because we prioritized them slightly differently in infra compared to development. And I don't know what the current state is, to be honest.
I think it was because before they weren't actually scoped; they were just S1, S2, S3.
Oh, maybe that's
that
why.
also.
Yeah, I think it'd be nice to use the standard ones because I think other teams are using them within GitLab.com within that group. But it's not an urgent thing. We can just create a bot rule that will do it, I guess.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely not against changing them. Let's make sure that we update our rules and things so that everything behaves as it currently does. But yeah, I'm fine. If somebody wants to go and do that, that's fine.
Cool. And I just wanted to summarize what the bot rules, if someone's going to take up the triage. So I have these 3 things. If anyone can think of anything else, just add it there. And I'll take the action to open up an issue for that.
Awesome. That'd be great. Thank you. Awesome. So I'll add a little summary as well on the workflow stuff and put these boards on so that everyone's kind of got these. But this is this is definitely not a finished thing. So please keep giving comments and let's see what works and doesn't work and try and get this so that it's easy as well as useful. Nice. Robert.
Yes, I haven't been able to catch up too well this morning because of Slack having issues, but I think we're just about ready for a patch release, and I was wondering if we should test the API-based release stuff. Yorick says the RC testing uncovered 1 minor nuisance. Yorick, is that something we could possibly fix today and then do the patch release tomorrow? I don't think we're in a rush for the patch release.
So the merge request is already up and assigned to you. So yes, we probably can. But yeah, we can do the patch release tomorrow because the nuisance is just it triggers a merge train twice. That's it, and it might fail depending on the timing, but the one that actually matters, that one will pass. Yeah, the other one is just a tag, but the merge request for that is up. And I don't expect any other issues, to be honest.
Those are those famous last words again, Yorick.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I was thinking, I've said
it's gonna
that
work
before.
the first time every time.
Awesome. Okay, stuff. Is there anything else anybody wants to bring up on the recording?